and have started the recording. And if Sue is out there, how are we doing?
Okay, can you see my screen?
Certainly.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
hear your voice too. Welcome, Sue Barth, a wonderful presence in our society and birding community, and carrying the big task of one of the regional coordinators for our study region and the Breeding Bird Atlas. And take it away, Sue.
Okay, so yes, I'm one of three regional coordinators for the western region of the state. And my focus is primarily Niagara, Erie, and parts of Wyoming, Genesee, and Orleans. And this is a 5-year project. It's a third atlas, so you see the 3 there, New York State Bird Atlas, the third one. And 2 of them obviously have been done prior. They've both been 5-year projects. And it's a citizen science project that we're trying to assess the distribution and abundance of the breeding birds of New York State between 2020 and 2024. So 2021, this year, we're in our 2nd year already. Yeah, let's see if I can find the controls. Yeah. So year 2, we've got already 214 species are confirmed breeders here in New York State from the efforts of last year. 281 of these species are coded. That means they are either confirmed, they're probable, or they're possible breeders. So we still have some more to get confirmed here. There's over 1,700 atlasers. And I thank everybody who's been out there taking the time to enter their birding sightings into eBird, into the Atlas portal, and observing breeding behaviors and entering them into your checklist. We do appreciate them, and you're making a difference. There's already been over 150,000 checklists submitted. Some of the confirmed species for this year already are great horned owl, the bald eagle, red-tailed hawk, and monk parakeet. The monk parakeet would be more on the Long Island area. And by the way, going back to this screen, so one of the things you might notice is missing is the number of blocks that have been completed, or areas. Blocks are 3 mile by 3 mile areas that the state is divided into these blocks. And we're not going to talk about the completion of those blocks yet, because it's a great big effort that's underway right now. So we don't have a number on that yet, but it's coming. So what's the purpose of the atlas? It's to compare data with the 2 prior atlases and better inform us of the concerns that we have for the decline of many bird species we know that is happening. And the conservation efforts that are being put into them, it's going to give us a little more understanding of that. Now I have all of these little grids here that are kind of in my way. So let me just see if I can reduce this. Very good. Okay, so then the project goals include updating statewide distribution information on our breeding birds, obtaining a metric of abundance for breeding birds, and investigating the habitat relationships of them. And then, of course, engaging the public. You know, the more awareness that we have, the better it is for our birds. It's all for the birds. But we do want to engage the public, because the more people understand about them, the more they appreciate them, and the more they're going to try to help. And in the last 20 years between now and the last atlas, and I know Willie and several other people here have worked on the last atlas. So some of the things that were found between the first 2 atlases were the northward expansion of black vultures, the southward expansion of merlin. And I didn't know that. I didn't realize merlin were coming down. I thought they were going up. So that was kind of news to me. Red-bellied woodpeckers have moved north due to climate change and other factors. And sadly, the loggerhead shrike populations were lost in New York because of habitat changes and loss. So we want to know, maybe this year we're going to find out, or this atlas will find out, how far black vultures and fish crows have spread, what new species have moved into the state, and what are the last strongholds for henslow sparrows and black rails. So to collect the data that's needed, there's three main parts to the atlas. One is a block, which is what I alluded to a little bit ago. And that's just basically an area that's being studied. And then there's the portal. And that's just a part in eBird, a portal that the actual submission of your data goes into. And that's the world's largest database of bird observations. And then we've got our breeding behavior codes. And that just basically will define what an observer sees regarding a bird's breeding or potential breeding behavior. So the block system, you see New York State there, most of it anyway, all divided up into these 5,700 blocks. They're roughly 3 miles by 3 mile squares, and they're used to map New York's breeding birds. So it gives you an area, a range to work within. About a third of the blocks are designated as priority blocks, where we should first focus our efforts to ensure even coverage of the state. So when you're out atlasing, hopefully you will be, keep within block boundaries. And then if you go and wander out of it, start a new checklist. Detailed maps are available on the Atlas website, and you can actually even download some of them onto your phone, which is kind of cool. You can download all of them onto your phone. And some of them work with GPS, which is really neat. And I got the little unashamed plug here to sign up for a block, but we'll get to that later. So the block system, if you stay within your block and you're submitting your data to eBird, eventually you're going to get to a point where you think, well, I'm not really recording any new birds here. When is my block really going to be considered complete? How long do I have to keep doing this? So basically, you want to visit your block 3 times in a year. April, June, July is an example of 3 spread out times of the year to visit. And it's during a time when certain birds will be breeding there. You want to visit all accessible habitats like fields and hills and woodland areas and water areas, shorelines. And then you want to put in 20 plus hours of daytime burning and 2 hours of nocturnal birding. And believe me, that nocturnal birding is hard. I've had a hard time with doing that on my own. And note, if you submit an incomplete checklist, and I notice a lot of people out there do this, well, not a lot, but some people do that consistently. The time that you spend working on your block or any block and you submit your sightings into eBird, they're not going to count unless you do a completed checklist. So that's an important fact to note. Another completion criteria is between 55 to 95 species are reported. It's highly variable throughout the state. I mean, some places aren't just going to get up that high, and then, you know, other ones are going to be like crazy high. And then half of your reported or coded species are confirmed. The coded ones are possible breeders and probable breeders. And you want to get to the point of having at least half of them confirmed. Like you have some hard evidence that that bird is definitely breeding there. They're collecting nest material, or they've built a nest already, or you've seen a fledgling. And another little plug here to sign up for a block. So the Atlas portal, that's a second criteria for atlasing, is submitting your data to the eBird platform. It's specifically designed to support the Atlas, and we have our own for New York State. So by using the portal, observers are confirming 3 things. They're aware that the Atlas project is going on, and they're going to just work within the boundaries of a single Atlas block for that checklist, and their breeding codes are applied correctly. All observations must be entered through the New York Breeding Bird Atlas portal to count for the project. So even if you're doing a checklist out there, You don't put it in the portal, and if you assign some breeding codes, yeah, that's nice data for eBird, definitely good stuff to put in there, but it's not going to count for the project. It won't be helping New York State's project. So do be aware you need to submit it through the portal. Don't worry if you go out birding and you put your checklist in the wrong portal, or you forget to even put it into the New York State breeding bird portal. Or if you make an error in your code that you assign, you can change it later. Now the screenshot over on the left shows what happens when you go into your checklist. Now this is from a computer's desktop, so or a desktop computer. So it's a little bit different on the more mobile app, but basically you would go into your desktop computer in your browser inside the checklist that you're wanting to change portals with, and you go up to checklist tools, change portal, and then you select the New York Breeding Bird Atlas. In your mobile phone, it's going to be within your settings, and you change it to portal, and then you can select which portal you want to change to. And you can always go right back and go back to the regular eBird portal when you're done. And then the third criteria is breeding behavior codes. So you're out within a block and you're looking for breeding birds. You've got your phone all set, ready to put your sightings into the eBird portal. And then you're going to look for breeding behavior. There's 4 main categories. There's observed, there's possible, probable, and confirmed. And as you can guess, observed is you're just plain looking at it, at a bird. But possible is, oh, maybe it is breeding. And probable is it's looking pretty good. And confirmed is where you want to get to. There's 23 subcategories in those 4 main categories. And you should focus on learning these when selecting in your eBird checklist. And once you select one of the subcategories, it'll automatically be assigned to the proper main category. So we've got this little blue jay over here. What do you think would look like to you that this little guy's going through right now? And there he is. I don't know if people are muted, but go ahead and take a guess. What do you think?
Recently fledged.
Yes.
Wow, that was a very good guess. We got some atlasers out there. You can get all of the breeding
And some
codes.
learner.
Yeah, right. You can get all the breeding codes on the Atlas's website. They're a sub website to eBird, and I've got some good links at the very end of the presentation for you. And I'm going to put this presentation also up on the BOS website so you can refer to it later. So in the observed category, this is a main one, any bird you enter on your checklist in the portal without a code is automatically just recorded as being observed. So you've got shorebirds that normally breed up in the Arctic. You don't want to put a code to them. They're going to just be observed. Same for herons or egrets, the colonial nesting species. They're observed away from a nesting colony. Of course, we're not going to include green heron or bitterns, but those would not get a code either, such as also gulls that are at a dump site or plowed fields or lawns, or marsh wrens singing in a dry grassy field. You know that these are not breeding areas and they should not be coded. So they're automatically going to go in as observed. And the same for a flyover. When birds are flying high overhead or in direct flight, like turkey vultures soaring overhead, ringbill gulls flying above a forest, or a great blue heron flying over your city neighborhood, you're going to put flyover oftentimes, but that's not going to give any potential breeding behavior assigned to that bird, which is what you want, because that's just not what they're doing. Oh, I went the wrong way, sorry. Okay, so possible, we've got a couple sample codes. I'm not going to go through all of the codes, but here's a couple of sample ones. H for appropriate habitat. So when you see an adult in suitable nesting habitat in a breeding season for that bird, you can assign H to it. If that's all that you're seeing, it's just simply there, the habitat looks good, and you can give it an H. Like you've got a Virginia rail walking through a marsh or a bobolink in an abandoned field, those look good. You can give it that. Or singing birds in suitable nesting habitat. Now, remember that suitable nesting habitat has to be part of this because you know that you want that bird to be in the area where it could breed and it's singing away. So it could be also for non-songbirds. So it's not necessarily a musical song, but it could be like a great horned owl hooting or a woodpecker drumming, a woodcock painting, rail vocalizations, anything that would be considered a song for that species. We've got probable, and this is getting a little bit more hopeful that maybe these birds are going to be really breeding here. And we've got a singing bird that's present for over 7 days. And it could be it's got to be at the same location on at least 2 occasions of 7 more days apart. Like a pine warbler singing from the same group of pines 2 Saturdays in a row. Or a barred owl calling for over a week from the same patch of forest. Or you could observe a pair in a suitable habitat. Again, you want to have suitable nesting habitat. And when you're fairly certain that a mated pair of birds has been observed, you would assign P for pair in suitable habitat, like 2 mourning doves sitting next to each other. They're preening one another, and you know that that's an obvious pair. Or a male and female rose-breasted grosbeak together several times in the same area. You don't see a nest, but they look like they're pretty much bonded, and they're probably thinking about starting a family. Or if you actually see copulation or courtship display, you can assign C, and that's looking very, very probable for breeding also. That could be American woodcock or even the Wilson snipe in their display flights, or rough grouse drumming, which I was surprised at. They have that as an example, but to me that would almost be song, but I guess it's more of a display in that case, and courtship. And then we get to confirm, which is what we're all shooting for. And you see real evidence, hardcore evidence here of nesting birds or breeding birds. And so a bird could be carrying nesting material, sticks, grass, mud, cobwebs, like a red-tailed hawk breaking off sticks from a tree and carrying them away. I saw a crow yesterday just over my road, just flying over with a stick in its mouth. And I thought, oh, that's good news. Chipping sparrows flying with a bill full of grass. Or you see an actual nest site. So there's nest building going on, like the Canada goose moving reeds around and adding mud to build up its nest. Or a warbling vireo weaving cobwebs into its nest. We could have recently fledged young, like our blue jay earlier. And they've got downy feathers on them still. They're dependent on adults and presumed incapable of extended flights from their nest site. You could have a common merganser with their fuzzy little ducklings, a stubby-tailed little northern cardinal incapable of sustained flight. Those are all good evidences of confirmed. Now, you could go someplace where you've observed multiple breeding behaviors. So you always want to use your highest breeding code if you see different ones. So for example, at the end of June, you're birding at Tillman and you encounter a yellow warbler, and this female is busy taking its nest material back and forth to her nest site. Then a little later, you see an adult male with a mouthful of insects who's looking around and dives into some shrubbery. You're going back to your car an hour later and you see a fuzzy little fledgling awkwardly perched on the side of the path. What breeding behavior would you assign to the yellow warbler?
Recently fledged.
Yep, very good. Double emphasis. Okay, let's imagine a few scenarios. You're out in the woods at Chestnut Ridge at the end of June, and Sue Barth suddenly pops out from behind a tree and beckons you over to see a cowbird being fed by a red-eyed vireo. After you've recovered from your fright, how would you code that observation?
We're still startled.
It's a two, you get to
Two.
code two species. You get to
Yeah,
you get
Chris.
to code the parent and the cowbird as yeah, but I'd probably put in notes, you know, about the parent is feeding a cowbird and the cowbird is being fed by this by the host.
Would it be carrying food for the red-eyed vireo? And
Well,
recently fledged young for the cowbird?
Well, the cowbird would be, yes, recently fledged.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay.
And then, yes, the red-eyed vireo is feeding young. Yep. And it's a twofer. You get two birds with a cowbird.
All right.
That's always nice.
And they are loud. So yeah, it's the only time, you
Quite
know,
vocal.
it's kind of your best time to get to notice cowbirds is a noisy fledgling, because then you
Yeah.
actually get the adult, then you get the host parent.
Yeah. So true. Yeah, this is, I'm actually liking cowbirds now when I'm doing atlasing. Before I never did.
Yeah.
Here's another quiz. It's early March and you're birding at Buckhorn and you see Tom Kerr up ahead with his field trip participants. Tom points out the red-breasted mergansers who are flapping their wings, stretching and calling loudly out mid-river. How would you code those ducks?
Courtship display.
That's a good guess.
It's none of the above, isn't it?
Yes,
Because they don't actually, the species doesn't breed here.
right. So it's a trick question. Sorry for the trick. But,
We like
but-
it.
but yeah, all displaying migrating ducks should not get coded at all because they don't breed here, like you said. So we'll leave that uncoded, and by default, it'll just fall into the observed category. So you just want to be watching for potential breeders for our region. Here's another one. You're at Tillman, and it's towards the end of May, and you're walking the mounds looking for sparrows, meadowlarks, and bobolinks. Down below in the field, you see Mike Morganti scratching his head as he watches a killdeer dragging its wing and appearing to be injured. How would you explain this scene to Mike, and how would you advise him to code this?
Maybe DD, distraction display.
Excellent. Mike, do you agree?
Yeah, if that's the higher code.
Okay, very good. Yep. So it does indicate that there's a nest nearby and a killdeer is attempting to draw Mike away from it. So distraction display is perfect. Similarly, a rough grouse will also feign injury, pretending to have a broken wing when a predator is near. And an ovenbird will run around with its wings fluttering in an attempt to draw predators away from its nest. So be on the lookout for those behaviors and they can cue you into nesting birds. At the end of June, you're leaving Krull Park and up ahead you see Willie Deanna peering into a hollow gate pipe at the exit. When you approach him and you ask him what in the world is he doing, he explains he sees a great crested flycatcher flew in there with an insect in its bill, and then it flew out a few seconds later without the insect. You both look into the pipe and you see 3 nestlings about 10 inches back inside the pipe. This is a true life example, by the way. What code will Willie use on his checklist?
Nest with young.
Excellent.
Yep.
So even though the flycatcher was carrying some food, it was obvious that it was feeding young. But the nestlings are not fledged yet, and they're still in an active nest. So yes, a nest with young is the right answer. You and Willie back away so as not to disturb the nest nor draw a predator's attention to it, and then he'll code it later as a nest with young. In the middle of a cold winter's night in the month of February, you receive an encrypted secret message from Alec Human telling you about a great horned owl's nest. The next day, after making sure you're not being followed, you go check it out. When you get there, all you can see is the top of the owl's head over the nest. What breeding behavior code would you use in your observation?
On nest.
A nest.
All right, very good. You guys, I can't pull anything over you. So even though the date is part of this equation too. Since the owl is deep in the nest and because of the date, you can assume she's still incubating. So yes, on nest. However, if you see some cute little fuzzy wuzzy heads moving around a few weeks later, you would use nest with young. Okay, it's mid-April, and Celeste Morian has been very busy at the Batavia wastewater treatment plant preparing the purple martin gourd racks for the next breeding season. She looks up and smiles big when she sees one of the male scouts circling in the air near the racks. They're back. What breeding code will she enter in her eBird checklist?
Hmm. And
N.
Yes. Since no nest building has actually begun and the eggs have yet to be laid, Celeste will code this as N, visiting a probable nest site. And we all wish them a successful year again.
Thank you. I hope they do succeed.
I know, I know. So it's the end of May and a male northern cardinal keeps ramming into your front window. What's going on here? Is there even a code for that silly behavior?
T.
That's right out my office window.
It's courtship. No, it's territorial defense. It's
Yeah, there we
T.
go, there we go.
It's T.
You got it.
Mm.
It's normal behavior for some species. So it's obviously perceiving his reflection as a competitor in his territory. So territorial defense is right. Reading the month May in the Prothonotary, you notice that Gailvert Haig had a singing Prothonotary warbler at the small wooded lot at Point Greyshot in Dunkirk on the 2nd. Unfortunately, it was a one-day wonder. Looking at Gail's corresponding checklist in eBird, you see she also had 2 chestnut-sided warblers, 3 yellow warblers, and a black-throated green warbler, all singing at that same location. How do you think Gail coded those warblers?
Singing bird.
none of the above?
Yeah.
Yes, none of the above. Very good. Who was that, Willie?
Yeah.
Nice. Since they were heard at the beginning of May, we can be fairly certain they're just migrating to the area. The Prothonotary wouldn't find suitable habitat there, and the breeding season won't begin until June for most. Therefore, you would not code these warblers at this time. None of the above is right. However, if a yellow warbler was heard again a week from that date, that would probably qualify for a singing male present 7+ days. A little tricky one on that one. Sorry.
Tricky.
Yeah, no, I
agree with that.
didn't notice the month. That's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Timing is important, right? We've got 1 or 2 more left. On a warm day in the beginning of April, the southerly winds bring Mike Zebahazy some nice raptors at the Hawk Watch. Jim and Karen Landau pop in to join him after running an errand. But truth be told, that errand was just an excuse because they had a feeling today would be good and they just had to be there. Several bald eagles, 2 golden eagles, a rough-legged hawk, and many of the expected turkey vultures and hawks keep the counters very busy. At the end of the day, how will all those raptors get coded?
Flyovers.
Yeah. You guys are good.
Coasters.
These raptors are migrating, and although they may kettle to gain altitude from the thermals, they're flying in a somewhat direct flight and should be coded as a flyover. The code does not indicate breeding because it's in only the observed category. So you guys are great. You did an excellent job, and I think you should all become atlasers if you're not already. And now that you know a little bit about the project and how it's going to help our beloved birds, you probably do want to help. So what you can do if you want to is sign up for a block. You can do that through the Atlas website that I mentioned, and I've got links for you. And I had 3 very unabashedly out there kind of links for you guys to sign up for a block, because it's going to help ensure that we get this project done. So if you want to sign up for a block, but note that you don't have to become the principal atlaser of a block. You can still submit your sightings to eBird through the portal. But become an atlaser also entails assigning breeding codes to your observations and submitting your sightings through the portal in eBird. But before you zip out there, review the Atlas essentials, the block system, the codes, and how to use the portal.
Hey, Sue, I have a question for you.
Well, it's just about the right time for that.
What if, so what if you are driving and you see a crow carrying nesting material? So it would be incidental because you're driving, but you can't mark that as a complete checklist in eBird.
Well, you could. You could say, use your GPS point for location. So you can get that part down. And then you can just put it in for like, a 1-minute observation.
Gotcha. So
Sue?
just as a stationary?
Yes. You don't even have to do stationary if you don't want to.
Sue,
Yes?
Jerry Thurn had some mentioned in the chat that he had some input on carrying food. Are you there,
Okay.
Jerry?
Yeah, this is Jerry Thurn. I'm on the Atlas Methods Committee, and some of the background work that I've been doing on the side has looked at some confirmed species statewide. And Sue's presentation showed a number of examples of birds, certain species carrying food. Well, I've looked at 125 confirmed checklists throughout the state for the belted kingfisher. And I'm seeing 60 to 70% of those confirmed checklists are just for carrying food with no further comments. And they include carrying food in March, carrying food in April. That particular species, as an example, always carries food. It almost never will dive in, grab a fish, and eat it before it has arrived at a perch where it can properly ingest the food. So as an example, there's probably 60 or 70% of those checklists that probably won't be allowed as confirmed because the atlaser really has failed to provide any additional information. And that's kind of important, especially for the people here at Buffalo Ornithological Society. You want to be able to, when you put your breeding behavior in, you want to add some additional information to help the Atlas committee determine whether it's a valid observation or not. With the belted kingfisher, it might be carrying some food to feed a fledgling that's on a nearby branch, or it might be entering its nest burrow with the fish that it had just caught. But 95% of the time it's going to its favorite perch and consuming the food itself, especially outside of the breeding period. So it's just some advice to add some additional information, because otherwise the Atlas committee is going to be having to filter all of that data that is questionable.
Yeah, that's very good. Same with an eagle or an osprey carrying a fish. The exact same scenario, yes. And the one thing too, Jerry, they are working on right now filtering out inappropriately coded observations. So those that are marked as confirmed will eventually be recoded for those scenarios.
Thanks.
So I had a question. So I have been over to Unity Island and the red-winged blackbirds have arrived and they are all singing their heart out. And I marked them as singing, more than 7 singing birds present. But I realize if it's not their breeding season right now, then I shouldn't mark them like that. Is that correct?
That is correct. There is I'm not sure I can get to it from here, but there is a nice chart that the Atlas folks have worked up for us. And it gives you
the breeding chart. Yeah, I've seen that where like for each month, and it tells you whether what is expected in terms of breeding behavior for that bird.
Yes, yes. So go by that too, because some are early nesters and some are much later in the year.
Yeah.
So if you know that you're in the right time frame and you see that, it's a very accurate thing to code. So they could be singing, 7+ days or multiple males. And if it's their time, it's fine to code them.
Now, how should I code them right now? Would that be like just appropriate habitat? Because otherwise,
if it's not their time, I was just looking to see if I have that. I might have that chart up on my other computer here.
They could very well be migrants at this date. I mean, because they're pouring in right now, and they'll come and they'll land and they'll sing for a long time, all of them, and but they could be gone the next day even.
I mean, I was there yesterday and they were there, and I was there today, but I saw a ton, probably over 200 blackbirds. I don't know which ones they were, but I saw a ton of birds flying over in the hour that I was over there.
Is there
yes.
Is there a cattail marsh?
Yes, there's marshes, and there's usually, like in the summer last year, I counted probably about 20 red-winged blackbirds there that were residents, and they were breeding there. I saw the nests and I saw the babies. So I think the ones that are there probably, I think they're probably there for good.
Yeah, I think you're probably right in that case. Yes.
Yeah, and it says they begin possible breeding behavior in the middle of March, and then April it becomes it extends through there, and then actual breeding for sure in June.
Yeah, so if you say possible breeding behavior the middle of March, which is like 2 days away.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the middle of March now, I would say, right? I mean, it's the 10th. That's pretty much the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So question is habitat or singing males?
Multiple singing males, right? I mean, that's what I would think. I mean, especially since from your observation last year that they were breeding there, right? You saw them in the summer singing away.
Yes.
So I'm sure that's what they're doing.
Okay. And what about, I also saw a ton of, like around 200 ring-billed gulls. I was there yesterday and today, and they are all on the ice, and they seem to be all paired up, because I see them, a lot of them I see in pairs. And the males definitely, they throw their head back and they make noises and they chase each other away. So I did that as courtship, because the way they were throwing their head back. So is that, and I know they are paired up because I see most of them are in twos. And would that be like territorial defense or courtship? I don't think they breed on Unity Island. But I put courtship in because I wasn't sure.
Well, that's a toughie. I know that they don't breed there, so that would not be in the right area for them. And so I would not code those. I would just let it go at the observed myself. Willie, what do you think of that?
I mean, even so, they can be courting in one place and then breeding in another place.
Yeah, that is a tough one, I think, because they do breed not far from there, right out on the, I don't know, do they breed on the breakwalls or on the Donnelly Spit or something?
I know the terns do, but I don't know about the gulls.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they breed around in places up there, but
The herring gulls do.
Most places in the region, when you see that behavior of the ring-billed gulls, they're not breeding anywhere nearby. So
Yeah, I
that's
think
kind of a
Tom
tough
Kerr-
one in that area.
Yeah, I think Tom Kerr last year mentioned about a big breeding colony somewhere up near Niagara Falls. I know he mentioned a ring-billed colony, a breeding colony, and it was not around Unity Island.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just mark those, or I will take the breeding code off that I
Yeah.
assigned them.
And Shelley, did you have something to add?
Just that the herring gulls do breed on Donnelly Spit.
Okay.
So that they make nests and everything right there, huh?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, great. I saw some little chicks last year when I was scoping at the Seaway slip and out on the break wall down on the platform on the bottom. And I don't know which, I think they were ring-billed chicks, but I'm not positive. And they could fly, but they were still very fuzzy. So I was a little surprised at that. So I'm not sure if they were breeding anywhere nearby, or maybe they were herring gulls, but I was a little surprised to see those chicks there.
It could be both, but I know I have seen herring gull chicks.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that ring-billed gull, I'm pretty sure there's a big colony around there,
Yeah.
somewhere near Bethlehem. Connie Adams would know, but I'm pretty sure they're in that area.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
somebody just posted something to the chat about this.
Yeah, Mike Morganti commented about the Stony Point, the south end of the
Yeah.
Buffalo Harbor, that for I don't know how long that's a tremendously large
Yeah.
colony of gulls. I don't know if I assume included both ring-billed and herring, back to the days of Bob Anderley's explorations out there at the old steel site.
Yeah, the largest ring-billed gull colony on the Great Lakes is at the south end of Buffalo Harbor at Stony Point. So, I mean, those birds that Yuli saw could, they could breed there, but you don't really know that. It's still some distance from there.
I have a question. Since I'm already an atlaser, I have a question about finding out what birds have been verified as breeding. And you can click on that little icon at the top, the breeding bird atlas icon that sometimes appears on your screen when you're in eBird. And I'll get a number and I'll say maybe I had 62 confirmed species. But I click on that number and it goes to the New York State, my New York State life list. It doesn't give you the birds that have been accepted as confirmed. And I don't know if there's any way you can get that.
There is. I just saw it the other night. It was pretty cool. So in
The Atlas website, there's also an Explore tab, like what we have on, in the regular
Right.
eBird. Okay. And you go there, and then on the left side, there's a drop down. And you can go to different kinds of choices, one of them like confirmed species.
Okay.
And you can, then go down and zero down into what you're looking for, which is it's very cool. So
All right, I didn't see that on there. Okay.
you go, Savannah Sparrow and see like where that's been confirmed. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I'll look at that.
Okay.
So I had another question. I live in a priority block and I go over to Unity Island a lot, and I think I confirmed, I don't know, 13 or 14 species there last year, and I decided that I wanted to sign up for the block, which I did, and I haven't heard anything. Do you know how long that takes?
Okay, so you think your block is completed? Is that
No. The block is not completed, but the block was still available. Nobody had signed up for it. There's a few atlases, and I thought I sign up for the block because I live in it.
Oh, okay. So you signed up for it.
Yes, but I haven't heard anything. It says, we will review your applications and we will get back to you. And I just wondered how long that will take.
Oh, actually, usually not too long. Let me look into that, okay, Yuli?
Okay, thanks.
I should be able to get back to you like by tomorrow morning on that.
No rush. Thank you.
Any other questions?
This was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. The last slide has some links that y'all might benefit from. So I'm going to put that up on our website and you could go take a look at the presentation, slip quickly to the last slide and get some links. Once you get into the Atlas website, by the way, all these things are there and available very easily for you.
Sounds like it's important to not just rely on eBird, but to study the website of the Breeding Bird Atlas also. You need to use them in conjunction.
Lots of information there, lots of great information there.
They also do these town halls too.
What's that?
They also do town halls type meetings
Yeah.
on Zoom as well. I think there's one coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, they had one the other night, and that's where I saw how you can drill down and find the confirmed species. So hopefully this was helpful and inspiring for people to go out and
Hey,
start helping with
Sue,
the project.
I have a question or two, maybe, if you don't mind.
Of course. Not.
I was a little bit unclear when you were saying about like the complete checklists versus incomplete checklists and what's good. I mean, I pretty much use complete checklists, but if it's through the Atlas portal, so let's say you have someone who's submitting checklists through the Atlas portal and incomplete, are those, is it the time, the effort that's not getting counted, or like the entire checklist isn't being counted?
The effort is not getting counted.
Okay, in that hour. So it's like the codes or the species are still going through, but not that like getting towards your 20 hours and 2 hours.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And kind of then related to that block completion, now that we're in year 2, I guess just thinking about strategizing, because there's still some priority blocks in the area that, haven't been surveyed or don't have any effort. And kind of just looking forward, if you have if you get to your, about half of your species, but you're not up to your 20 hours, should the priority then be for your time to then switch to kind of more to be doing some less to go survey some new blocks?
No,
if you can't quite, if you're not really at that or that complete all those criteria.
Yeah, that question came up the other night during the town meeting, and their advice was go and focus on other blocks. So I guess, and then when you get to say later in the year and you need cedar waxwing for the one that you haven't quite completed yet, you then go back and do that. But they're saying that your time is better spent on other blocks when you get to that, tricky threshold where you're just about complete.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Good to know. I feel like with out of the blocks that I'm covering, I don't know, I spent a lot of time in them last year, but not 20 hours.
Well, I'll tell you, those 2 nighttime hours for me is the hardest.
I think the confirming 50% of the species is difficult.
It is difficult.
I find that's what takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right, and kind of takes the fun out of seeing a new species in your block. You're like, oh no,
it's funny.
why did I
That's right.
suddenly hear a
Now I gotta
cuckoo
confirm another
singing?
half species.
Yeah, I asked that question. I said, so if you get a block completed and then more people keep going to this area and they keep coding new species, will that block become ever unconfirmed again or incomplete? and actually she said, you know, that's a very good question and we've been discussing that. So I don't know what the answer is.
You know, so I had another question. It's like at Unity Island, there were some birds that I thought were probably breeding, but I could never confirm it, right? So I'm gonna focus on those when I go over there this year. But what if I see like an immature bird? It's not a fledgling anymore, but it's a immature bird from this year, which would establish that they bred there, right? But
Yeah,
there's no code for that.
No, you can't count that as a recently fledged if that's what you're thinking.
Yes, I know. No, I know I cannot count it because it's not recently fledged. But wouldn't that be also like evidence that birds breed there?
Well, it depends on, if it's older and it's already fledged and it's able to fly and it's, post-breeding dispersal, it could have come from any block.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Sadly. I wanted to use that myself a few times, but I couldn't.
No.
Hey Sue, a nocturnal question for you. So if you're driving around quiet roads, listening to nothing, but should you maybe making stops pretty much just where there's woods or shrub, like pretty close? Or, I mean, because a lot of places in the more rural areas, you have ag fields and such where there are woods that are set further back. I'm getting pretty nitty gritty here, but like how far, like, because it seems like that the closer that the woods would be, then you'd have a better chance of like maybe hearing or encountering something. But I was just curious if there's any sort of guidance on like, oh, well, but if you think that you could, I don't know, I was just asking, like, should you be targeting like where woods comes up to the road or shrub comes up to the road?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good spot to try. You're talking specifically owls, right?
Yeah, for owls, as opposed to places opposed to places where you have farm fields or hay fields and there's woods that are set further back that, I guess maybe if you know from the aerial that it's a good sized wood lot, it still might be worth stopping, I guess, but you'd have to be able to hear it.
Well,
I gotta say,
some owls you would still hear even if they're way in the back of the field in the woods.
Yeah.
You wouldn't hear a screech owl probably if it's like a half mile back there, but you could hear a great horned owl or barred owl very easily.
I was with Willie one time and we were at Iroquois near a marsh and Willie just decided to try calling for great horn. And it came from a long way back and flew up to us. Do you remember that, Willie?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. It was very, very, very cool.
Oh,
so then do you get to code that as anything?
No, it was too many years ago.
No, but if that happens, like, would that be an example of territorial defense, or if it's in the appropriate time of year?
Well, it sang back.
I would call it territorial defense, I think. Wouldn't you? Right?
Yeah, I guess so. It did call back to you.
Oh yeah, if it called back too, yeah. And if it flies in. And something like great horned owls, they're on their territory, all year round. So you can kind of, you can get territorial behavior from them throughout the year, really.
That's cool.
But most species, of course, are not like that.
So Chris, to your question, so it doesn't necessarily have to be wooded, I guess, I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, a diversity of habitat is often great. You know, there's good woods nearby and there's fields nearby. Sometimes if you're just listening in where there's really thick woods on both sides, you may not be able to hear as far because the trees kind of block your hearing to some extent. I mean, you know, again, we're talking nitty gritty here, but
No, that's good,
That's
but
why I
it's-
like the edge, you know, where you are near both habitats and you kind of get the best of both.
Mhm. You know, Tom Kerr had given me a couple tips about going to like thick shrubberies for a screech owl because they don't have much competition because the other owls are too big to be able to get down into the shrubs and, you know, the thickets and hunt down in there. So I did try several of them and I did use up a good hour of really trying hard for the atlas. But I never came up with anything. But no
That's
hours
interesting.
still count. No results. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that would be productive myself. You know, for screech owls, I like to have woods generally.
okay, well, that's
They
good.
can even be small woods. I mean, they're in our yard, so
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I'll change my strategy.
Well, Sue, what else could there be? Taken a lot of questions and presented a program. Any closing remarks?
No, just here's some resources and I just hope you get out there and help the project out because it's going to help our birds.
yeah, I would just say, you know, people should definitely sign up for the apps. It's really, it's a tremendous experience. I mean, you will learn a lot about birds. It's
Yeah,
and
that's
it's a lot of fun. It really is. It's work in that you have to put in the time, but it is a lot of fun.
yeah, that's very true. And I've noticed so much about birds that I never knew before just by simply watching for birding behaviors.
Mhm.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Very fulfilling.
I think it's sort of like detective work, right? I know there's a bird and I know it's breeding somewhere and I have to find where that is. You know, you use all the clues along the way.
Yeah.
Watch beaks. That's like you watch bird beaks is like the biggest thing I got out of the last year with atlasing.
For food?
Yeah, for food and for nest material.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Or fecal sacs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I didn't get any one of those this year.
Nothing like a good fecal sack.
Well,
So Sue, now that we're all like, you know, revved up and ready for, you know, another Atlas season. So it's like mid-March. So what should we be focusing on at this point? Like checking out big stick nests and seeing if we can, you know, kind of cruising around trying to find occupied red-tailed and eagle nests and things?
Absolutely. On the slide here, the second from the bottom, the bullet, the guide to early nesters. Those are birds you could really truly be focusing on right now. Horned larks, even oddly. There's a good number of them.
I saw a bald eagle on a nest today. It was a nest I had never seen before. It was actually found by Rachel Wilson. And I was just driving by. I was looking for the nest because I was told about where it was. And I saw the eagle just fly up and onto the nest. But unfortunately, it did not appear to be incubating. So, you know, or it was not attending chicks or anything. So it may still be working on the nest, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, with Sue's permission, I'm going to put a stop to the recording now, and certainly we could continue discussion. And if anyone has any non-breeding bird sightings, we could continue some discussion if we're all ready for that.